And today's guest is Crystal White from Stingless Bee Buzz. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thanks for having
welcome.
me, guys.
And also got my little mate over there, Adam.
Little mate. On a diet today, actually.
That's good. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about Stingless Bees today, Australian Native Stingless
Yep.
Bees, which I had no idea about until I sort of talked to you about it and
Yep.
sort of got into it. And actually, I was speaking to a lady just a minute ago, and she said, "Oh, what are you doing now?" So I'm back to do another podcast with a friend of mine about stingless bees. She goes, "Well, what are they?" I said, "Australian Native Stingless Bees." She goes, "I've never heard them before in my life."
Yeah.
And wow.
That's the thing. A lot of people in Australia, when you ask them about bees, the only bee that they can tell you about is the typical European honeybee, which is the black and yellow striped bee that we all know about. And a lot of people do not know that we have that bee is actually an introduced species. It's not even a bee that was native to Australia. So the European bee was introduced in 1822 to Australia. And it's a little bit sad that everybody knows about that bee, but not many people know that we actually have a massive array of Australian native bees.
So those introduced ones, are they like when we introduced the cane toad to help the cane farmers? I know they make honey and they're really good. Is there any, anything negative about the European bumblebee?
So it's not a bumblebee.
Oh.
Bumblebees
They call them bumblebee. They're way bigger fellas. They say.
Okay.
So the European bees were so the negative impacts, I guess, are that there definitely are positives and negatives.
Yep.
Obviously, they're great for crop pollination, but we also have a lot of bees, European bees, that have gone feral in our environments and are now nesting in trees and things, and they compete with our native bees.
Road bees. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely, and they are competing with our native bees for the resources that we have. So when we're going through things like drought and a lack of resources for the natives, the European bees are more efficient. They're up earlier. They are well adjusted to Australian temperatures, and they will get up even if it's cold, and they'll be out buzzing on the flowers before the natives are even up out of bed. So
the Australians are typical. She'll be right, mate.
Yeah.
So tell me, what got you into bees?
Okay, so I grew up in the Northern Territory, so I'm a bush kid at heart, and my dad was actually a park ranger for the National Parks and Wildlife in Kakadu and in Mataranka.
Oh, wow.
And so I remember he was always looking at plants and animals and insects and showing us everything, and I remember him showing me some native bees that were nesting in a massive Australian Northern Territory termite mound, and that kind of sparked my interest, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. And then I saw native bees in the Northern Territory here and there, and then when we moved to New South Wales, my husband and I, we were clearing a little bit of our block for a driveway, and he was on the excavator, and he pushed over a dead old tree, and out of it came thousands of stingless bees.
Yep.
And they don't sting, but they can bite if they're as a defence mechanism. So they started attacking him, and they attack
when they bite, little things at the front, little pinches. Okay.
The mandibles, yeah.
Because the European bee has the stinger, but
Yeah.
the myth is that if once they sting, they die, but they don't. I was reading the other day, they don't necessarily die after they've stung. Anyway.
I thought they
Yeah. No, I saw something the other day. I'm all beat up.
Yeah.
Can't stop reading about bees.
Yeah. So the natives that I work with primarily are all stingless, but they, like I said, they can bite. And
Yep.
so yeah, they attacked him, and anyway, so once that happened, we were due for a frost. It was winter, and I knew that if we left that colony of bees smashed open in a log in a frost, that they wouldn't survive. So I said, we've got to do something here. We've got to do something. So we wrapped up the log in the middle of the night, and we marked the markings on it so that we knew the orientation.
What do you use to wrap it up with?
We used cling wrap.
Yep.
And we transported it on our block. We have a large block, and so we transported it up to the veggie garden, and I just monitored these bees to make sure that they were okay. And
They don't sound okay?
Oh, so I let them out after we got it up there.
Yeah.
I left them in for like a little while. It was winter, it was cold anyway, and then I let them out
Just
for
bear
the
with me,
next
I'm a
morning.
layman in the bee industry. I have no idea. Yep.
And it was just sort of from then I just thought, well, I need to make sure I'm doing all I can to make sure these bees are going to be okay, because it's a colony of bees, so it's not just a few. We're talking there's thousands in a colony. So and I started researching and looking on YouTube and finding out stuff on Instagram and on Facebook, joining groups, and just learnt as much as I could, and that's where the passion started.
So with the hives, like I've seen a lot of people selling the hives, sitting, there's a couple of places just locally trying to sell the hives.
Yep.
Very, very different to the European honeybee hive. Basically it looks like a whole heap of logs with a couple of holes in it.
Yeah.
Make it look like a house, and there you go, natural bee, Australian bee hive.
That's the ideal. Obviously, for me, I never ever take a log from nature if it's still in a fully functioning live tree. We want to leave them out in the bush. They should be where they naturally are. So if people are selling a log hive, that's probably because there might be a new housing estate and trees have been cleared, and so they have cut the log and are then selling that on. But you can also have stingless native bees in hives, in boxes, but the boxes are very different to European bee hive boxes.
Yeah, which are just a tiny little holes all over the place.
Yep.
Now, if I was to get one of those for my backyard and start a hive, do I have to have a queen? Is there still like a queen bee compared to a European one, and that's where they all go to check out the queen?
Yep, you're spot on. So a colony isn't a live functioning unless it has the queen.
The queen, yep.
So every functioning colony has a queen. It's got the foragers, which are the bees that are going out and collecting pollen and nectar off and those are female, I must say. Those are all female bees.
Okay.
And then it has the drone bees.
Very Australian, isn't it?
Yeah.
The others are just sitting back having a few beers watching TV.
And what do the drones do? They're the soldiers, are they?
The drones are the male bees, and they absolutely do nothing at all for the colony apart from be there to breed with the...
I'm coming back as a bee. I come back as an Australian native bee. Yep. I like it.
So the girls do everything. And the queen, she's a princess bee. Once she mates and she becomes a fertile queen, she never ever leaves the hive again, because she's...
Are they bigger than the other bees?
Yeah. And that's the reason she never leaves the hive, because she's...
Can't get out.
Yeah, she's much larger and she can't fly.
Is there a lot of fighting going on? I know that the European bees, they fight a lot for that chance. Is there a lot of that going on in the Australian bees? Yeah.
When they're about to mate, definitely. So I see that at home quite a lot with the hives that I have. Everything will be fine, tracking completely fine, and then I might wake up one morning and I can just see a swarm of bees, and I know, okay, it's a mating swarm, and it might go on for a week or whatever, and then the mating happens, and you don't even know it's happened, and everything calms down.
Because I know. So
what comes out of the eggs? Is it females or males or both? What they need?
That's right. So the queen, she is the fertile queen. So the workers provision the cells with the food provisions. The queen lays an egg in the top of the cell on top of the provisions, and then it's capped by the worker bees. They close it off. Just with a wax, or like a wax that the European bees give them, or? It's quite different to the European bees. So it's a mix of tree resins. It's quite different. It's called propolis, and it's a darker colour. Yeah, it's like, I think it's black, isn't it? It's almost black, compared to that sort of yellow. Yeah, that's right, exactly. Wax. So, tell me, like, when I was reading up a little bit about it before you came. The Australian native bees, only like a hive will probably only give you a litre of honey a year. That's spot on, yeah, and that's in really good conditions with an extremely healthy hive. So. With the drought that Australia's been going through recently, you'd be really hard pressed to find hives that are still producing a kilo in a year, in comparison to European bee hives, which are just like massive amounts of honey per year. Yeah. So they sell that still, like commercially, the Australian Native Stingless Bee honey? Yeah, it is. You struggle with that, are you? Yeah. So yeah, that's right. So it is sold. It's not sold in stores. You can purchase it online. It's quite expensive. Yeah, I was going to say the litre a year is going to be very expensive, isn't it? It is. It's top of the line. So people go on about European bee honey, the Manuka honey. Yep. This is next level. It's way above Manuka honey. The medicinal benefits are massive. What are some of those? Well, there's lots of research being done into it right now. Yep. There's a lot of scientists working on that and identifying the properties of the honey and
Yep.
the water content and things like that.
Because there's royal jelly, which
Yeah.
is from the queen bee, European bee. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, is there like a royal jelly for? Well, probably wouldn't even be a thimble, wouldn't it, a year if it was coming from the queen bee?
So, from what I understand about the European bees, the royal jelly that they talk about is what they are provisioning the cells with,
Right.
but it's totally different for natives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll give you another little bit of information here.
Mhm.
So talking about people don't know about native bees. In Australia, we actually have about 1,700 different species of native bees, and out of that, 70% of those are ground dwelling. So they actually live in the ground.
So they're making hives
Yep,
under the ground.
burrows, but they're solitary, which means they live just by themselves, one individual bee. So it doesn't need a queen, they live by themselves. But the bees that I work with, there's 11 species, 11 types, and they're the stingless bees.
And they're the hivey bees.
They're the ones that are in a colony.
So you're saying there is Australian stinging bees?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, okay.
So every other bee in Australia, apart from those 11 that don't sting, they all sting, but they're not, Australian bees are not aggressive bees. So they're not
Yep.
going to come like flying and attack you, but if you stood on one, you might get a sting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they can sting more than once.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
I like them.
So the ones in the ground, there's just one by himself.
Yep. And
How's he breed?
so, I mean, there's lots of different ones.
Or
There's-
her.
Yeah.
He's got like a Tinder account. For bees.
That's it.
Swipe left or right.
They.
My kind of bee.
Yeah. They. I'm not entirely sure around the solitary bees, but I'm pretty sure that they mate. They go into the ground and they're capping off like cells. So I know about leafcutter bees. They line their cell with a leaf. Like
Yep.
they cut out a leaf and they fly it back to the burrow and they line and provision the cell, they lay the egg and then they fly out and they do that again. Come back and put another one in and another one in and another one in.
So out of that 1,700 species, there's only 11 species that are hivey ones, or stingless.
Yeah, that is
Stingless, yeah.
and that live in hives, yeah.
So when we go, just going back to those the battle scenes for
Yep.
bees, like are they little dudes hanging out in front of the hives, ready to attack anybody that comes into their hives, or
Yep.
are they more like, hey, come on in, check out my queen? What's the story there? So how do I get into a hive?
Okay, so it's not really about getting into the hive for the mating swarm. It's about waiting on the outside of the hive. The drones are waiting on the outside of the hives for a princess bee to emerge
Oh,
and
so they
come
get
out. Yeah.
Okay.
So she comes out of the hive. They attack her, mate with her, and then she becomes then a fertile queen.
Wow.
And there's already a queen inside, and she flies off and creates another
That's right.
family.
Yeah.
So what's a radius of a hive?
Stingless bee. Yeah, so it's a really good question. It's not far. Stingless bees' flight range is about 500 metres.
No.
That's
okay.
it.
So
Yeah.
so they'll only look for plants to pollinate in that radius.
That's right. And
Wow,
so,
so you have a lot of them, haven't you?
yeah, that's right. And you know that's why in Australia we're looking. There's lots of work being done also around crop pollination for small plant flowers. So things like macadamias,
Yeah, I was gonna
pecans,
get onto that, yeah.
blueberries. So they're all really, really tiny flowers. And European bees can pollinate them, but they're just so big. So they get in and they bustle around, and they're just a little bit too big to make it pollinate perfectly.
Yeah.
So the natives can get in there much easier into a much smaller flower to pollinate.
Because talking about the macadamia bees, like, and I'm talking years ago, I was in real estate and selling plantations,
Yeah.
mac plantations, and that disease come through at about that sort of time, and they were looking at things to pollinate the macas to get, because the harvesting was down, and they were actually bringing a wasp out at one stage. You could buy a wasp in packets sent in the mail and
Yeah.
put them on a tree, and the wasp would be born out of these packets and go and pollinate.
Yeah.
So, what you're saying, can they do that sort of thing with these native bees, or is the disease that affected the European bees, is that affecting our Australian native bees as well?
Yeah. So, in regards to crop pollination of with native bees, it's definitely a big thing in Australia, and it's going to get bigger in years to come. And talking back about that 500 metre foraging range, it's actually quite beneficial. If you own a maca farm, you put the bees on your farm and you've got them in amongst the rows, and you know they're going to pollinate just my block, because they can't go any further than that. They're just going to be pollinating what I have here on my block. So it's really good for
it's a no-brainer, really. Isn't
it? Definitely. And in regards to pests, there are pests for native bees, but in regards to what pests there are that are the same as European bees, there was there's been a lot of talk about the varroa mite coming into Australia. It hasn't breached our borders yet, but there's a lot of talk about it, and if it does, it's going to devastate the honeybee industry in Australia, which is going to be a big problem for crops and food and
without bees we don't have pollination, is it?
Exactly.
Where's this mite come from?
I'm not entirely sure where the varroa mite originated, but there's constant efforts on our borders to keep that bee the mite out of Australia.
Because I was also reading we're the largest exporter of bees in the world.
Bees or honey?
Bees.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're the largest of European bees. I'm not talking Australian bees. The largest exporter of European bees in the world. Yeah. Not just It's because the disease is
because we're isolated. Is that better?
Well, oh yeah, definitely.
Compared to North America, I guess that'd be the second biggest place. I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure around export.
I wouldn't have a clue there, but that blew me away. Like, so there's a big, the bee industry's huge, but I didn't know how big this native bee, stingless bees are. I just remember I was telling Al, we just had a coffee a minute ago and sit down. I said, I remember they used to sit, fly in and they'd be sitting on my desk, just running around my computer. And I've always loved them, and that's why I'd love one at my house, a little hive at my house.
So do you you've got them in preschools, and you do education in preschools and stuff? Or?
I do, in the Northern Rivers. So I work with a few different preschools in the area, and I go in with a hive that they purchased, and I do a big talk about the ins and outs of native bees, and we do like a little diagram on the board, and we talk about a fly has 2 wings but a bee has 4 wings, and how many legs they have, and all of this. And then the kids name the queen bee of that hive, and we put a little name on the front of the hive, and it's got a little roof, and it's it's really cute, and they just have this absolute fascination with bees from that point, because it's like their pets, And then I encourage the preschools to plant lots of plants and flowers and things for the bees to forage on. And then I go back and do checks throughout the year and call them up and say,
like you said when you said the angry ones attacked your husband and bit your husband, they won't bite the kid.
No. So it's only, they're perfectly safe in schools and preschools, or for anyone really, backyards, nursing homes. They're perfectly safe. The only time you might get a bite from them is if you when they're on the defence, and that's fair enough. They're defending their home. So if you open up a hive and you're checking it, or what some people do, splitting of hives, which is propagating a new hive. So if you were doing something like that, you might get a bite or two.
Are they giving you a chemical with that bite?
No,
it's not like you just get a bite and that's it. It's not like a green ant or something.
No.
So it's not going to hurt for ages.
No.
You don't wear your little suit with your smoke gun and go in? Don't need to do that?
No. So that's one of the really good things about stingless bees, is that you don't have to have a bee suit, and you don't have to have any kind of smoking equipment or anything. So pretty much if you wanted to have a hive of stingless native Australian bees at your house, you purchase the hive, and as long as you put it in the correct positioning, which is a little bit of morning sun, and then from that point on shade all day, and that you monitor it. If you're going to have a day of 40 degrees or something, that you ensure that they're cool enough.
So what do you do? Just wet it?
You can
with the hive,
you can wet it a little bit, or you can. I put a wet towel over the top of my hive and down into a bucket of cold water, and then I just sort of wicks up over the hive, and I leave that. But I mean, in a whole year, I might do that 3 days out of a whole year.
So they're pretty easy to look after.
They are.
They look after themselves. Now, just for interest sakes, you're saying that these schools name their queen bees. Any cool names?
There was actually, around the time of the fires here out at Ratville and out at New Italy, I was talking to the school or the preschool, and I told them that the bees in this colony had come from a log which we picked up out in the fire area from RFS, had cut down a tree which they were worried about falling across the road, and it had native bees in it. So we went out and did a rescue. on that colony, and I boxed them, and so they called the queen Cinder Buzz, as in cinder, fire, cinder,
not bad.
Cinder Buzz. It was really cute.
So actually, talking about those fires, I know that we talked about a lot of the bigger animals like koalas, kangaroos, wombats.
Yeah.
It would have been devastating.
What's
would have been
the
lots of
state of the
deaths.
nation, I guess, eh?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Couldn't give it a number, could you really?
No, who would know? But this was one of the things I just felt devastated about. I mean, all of our Australian animals are so important, and of course the koalas and the possums and the kangaroos are so important, but we had people out there and they're rescuing them, and you saw it all over the news, but there was very little talk about the bees and the insects, and like we've just explained how important bees are for our country.
But saying that, do you think, say, you know, bees and stuff, do they probably adapt it to fire better than a koala? Would they? You know, well, not only that, but their nests, would they be a bit more fire retardant than, you know, you know, koalas got to climb up a bloody tree.
Yeah, definitely.
Run with their trees though, they get burnt.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't burn from the inside either.
Yeah.
You know, so they're burning around or they're higher or whatever. I guess
that's
they
right.
would
It
be
depends
more
on.
adaptive.
We went out and did a fair few rescues out in those areas. We spent. You know, we've got 2 young kids, and we'd haul the kids out to the bush, and we would track around in the bush for hours upon hours upon hours after those fires had gone through, just taking logs from fallen trees across paths and roads and things like that. Because if the fire, it depends on the ferocity of the fire. If the fire came through in the day, a lot of the foragers that are out would have been burnt to death. So the hive can't survive without foragers bringing back in more food to provision the cells and all of that. So that's one thing to look at. And then also we did come across quite a few trees that were actually still smouldering, still burning up the trunk, and we would find a nest in one part of it, and the thought is, well, if we leave this for a week, the bulldozers are going to come and push that off the road, and then it's going to be wood chipped, so the bees are going to be gone, and so we would then cut out the log. And
talking about, have you talked to like fireys and council, and you know how involved are the council with this stuff? How involved the fireys? You know, the council realise that, hang on, this is something that could, well, especially our area where we've got macas and you know, pecans and coffee and stuff like that, where we need these bees to pollinate. Are they aware of this? Are council aware that, you know, these things have got, you know, we're knocking down trees and whatever? Can we just have a look for them?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's a huge awareness, but it's more so if, say, there's a new housing estate and they're clearing, I will go and approach them and say to the person on the bulldozer, look, if you come across any native bees, I'll come and do a rescue for free. So just call me, you know. Or we've worked a lot with, or spoken a lot with the forestry guys as well out near the bushfire. So they were clearing tracks and things, and I said to them, like, if you find any native bees, because also if we didn't take them from fallen, damaged trees in the fire area, if they did survive, there's nothing for them to forage on. Everything is burnt, and when they only forage in a 500-metre radius, there's nothing for them to survive on.
I was going to say that, like, you take them out of their environment, but you've sort of got to, haven't you? Yeah, because there's nothing there. What are you looking for when you're out there in the scrub? Is there signs?
Yeah, it's really hard. So my husband and I, we learnt how to do it, and I think I sort of had that inheritant thing from being a bush kid early on. I'm always watching little bugs and bees and things like that. So yeah, you're looking for the temperatures have to be right, the wind has to be right, so we have to pick the right day. It's got to be hotter than 18 degrees, because if it's below 18 degrees, the bees will not fly. The wind has to be low, because you have to, when you're walking, you're just looking for slight movements, and if it's windy, you can't pick that up with the naked eye. So yeah, we're just looking at fallen trees, and there's no easy way. It's like somebody said to me, oh, is it like finding a needle in a haystack? I said, oh, not really. It's like finding a needle in 50,000 haystacks. So it's not...
There's only little buggers.
Yeah. But when we find them, we've done a really great thing with our 2 little girls. Like I said, we take them out with us, and I'll locate a hive, and then I'll get my kids to come over and I'll say, okay, see if you can find it. Because I want them to be able to identify and find native bees.
Do they get pocket money if they find them?
We did offer, actually.
We used to get pocket money if we found bindi eyes in our carpet. It didn't help us the same as native bees?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So have you got a couple of hives at your house? Just,
Yeah, so you know how you hear of crazy cat ladies?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the crazy bee lady. I'm
Well, I
cool
did
with
notice you
that.
had a bee brooch. Do you
Yeah.
like have like, is your front door shape of a bee? Please tell me it's not.
No, not that crazy.
Okay, cool. Okay. You don't drive like a big beehive anywhere.
No, a big yellow car. No.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I do. I've got lots of
black and orange though.
No, notice that.
black and orange.
And do you always come in and go, bzzz, there you going?
That's it. I do. I've got quite a few hives at home, mostly in logs, because if I can keep them in their natural hive, I think that's really, really important. There's no point in cutting open a log and putting them in a box just for somebody's benefit. So I only do that if it's absolutely necessary because of pest invasion or things like that.
So when you transport them, so you picked them up in the bush, do you put them in like a Tupperware container? Because I'm just imagining like you got this log full of native bees in your car, and suddenly they get really upset.
Yeah.
You've covered them.
Yeah.
So you still, but I know that's when they moved them. So you cling wrap as well, or?
So when we locate them in the day, we then GPS marked them.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I would take photos of the fallen tree from all different angles, so showing that the tree is fallen, and because I don't want anyone to ever have the ability to come back to me and say, you're taking these bees from the native bushland, because I'm showing the tree is fallen, here it is split open, and I video it and I GPS mark it, and then we leave and we keep going and leave them for the day, because at night time all of them return to the hive. So we then go back on dark.
Yep.
I was going to say who gets left behind. Poor little guy that's out there.
I'm sure I live around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Where's everyone gone?
Yeah. So we wait till night when everybody's back home and they're all tucked in bed.
That's why those other fellas, that's why they went out on their own and just burrowed in the ground. They thought, everyone's left them all.
Created their own little species. They used to be
no one joined
them.
No one joined them.
And so then we wrap the log in either a bed sheet or cling wrap or whatever, and then put it in the back of the ute and transport it home. But then we have to get it off the ute into its new position before the sun rises the next day, because they will then come out and do like an orientation flight to work out, okay, we're in a new environment, where do we live now, where's our home, and
there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Just watching them, I just sit out with a cup of coffee there. I've got heaps of hives on my veranda, and like the kids are riding their bikes past and they're playing with toys. It doesn't bother anybody. You don't even know they're there unless you want to see them, because they're just so tiny. And
so how big are they, or how little are
4 millimetres?
Spot on. Yep. Between 3 and 5 millimetres for.
So what's a European bee then?
Oh,
it's probably about 15 millimetres.
Yeah.
About 1 centimetre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the bumblebees are
Bumblebees
about 5 centimetres. Bumblebees are huge. Europe.
Bumblebees were actually introduced to Tasmania in 1992. And same thing, Australia's doing everything they can do, the mainland's doing everything they can do possible to keep that the bumblebees in Tasmania, because we do not want them into.
Oh, they're bad dudes, are they?
Well, it's just another introduced species, which we will then have problems with competing with our natives and
what are they going to pollinate anyway? They're huge. They're enormous. You can actually get a couple of them, take for a ride. They're enormous. Absolutely incredibly enormous. Crazy
we do
enormous.
have a really large native bee in Australia called the great carpenter bee, and it's our biggest bee, and you can hear it coming from a mile away. It's like,
because you can hear native bees in hives when they're all together. I remember as a kid looking up and going, wow, what are those little fellas? Yeah. Because I thought it was real bees, but they were little native bees. You can hear them.
Yeah, that's right. You can hear them when they're in the hive. You can put your ear up to it and go, and you can hear the hum of it. But if it's just one flying by itself out pollinating flowers, you can't hear them at all.
No.
Just like a fly, I guess.
It does. That's exactly what people mistake them for all the time, is just a fly.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they're not annoying like a fly. Like I remember just seeing one on my desk, and you just sit there. You put him in your claw in your hands, and a fly won't do that.
Do they war, the European and the Australians? Do they fight for the territory, or what do they do?
No, not really.
I have seen a couple with blue paint on their face.
Warriors.
Well,
I was reading that there is blue ones.
Blue banded bees. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So they nest in like mud and mud brick, and like if you had like a brick home, they would probably be nesting in the mud.
So that's a
bricks and
native
things
bee,
like
is it?
Yeah,
because my brother-in-law and sister have a heap that burrow into the grout.
Yep.
Ah, there you go.
If they've got little stripes on
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
beautiful. I love blue band.
Are they hivey ones?
No, they're a solitary.
Yeah,
bee.
right.
So lonely dudes,
Yeah.
lonely little fellas. Because I only see one, and he's made a lot of holes in that grout though too.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So do you have a Facebook page, Instagram page?
I do.
Yep.
My Facebook page is just called Stingless Bee Buzz, and it's the same on Instagram, Stingless_bee_buzz. And my email address is stinglessbeebuzz@gmail.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like you put a lot of effort in it. So in the end of the day, what are you doing this for?
Well, obviously right now it's a passion for me. It's just a passion. I'm not making money off this. It's a passion, and I go into schools and preschools because I want our next generation of kids to grow up knowing about our native bees and understanding the importance of it. And I think that's a really good place to start, is with the next generation.
Well, the kids will tell the mums and dads too.
Yeah.
And then you're educating everybody that
Exactly.
way too.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you've done with us.
Yeah.
Mm.
But my end goal is I'd love to do this full time or more days per week. I'd love to be going out and doing rescues and having people call me up and say, oh, I've got a tree that's fallen down in the storm, can you come and rescue these bees, or how do I go about rescuing them? And then I could go there and show them, this is what we need to do, and here's a box that we can put them in, and here's where we'll position them at your house. And
like a consultant.
yeah.
Yeah, we've also got
Because every backyard really should have one, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
I'm
going to say,
keen.
what can the general population do to help bees? What can we do?
Yeah, that's probably like the most important question.
Yep.
The less
Got it, didn't you? Hey?
You got it. The less land clearing, the better, because obviously people, we're going to grow, populations grow, and there's new subdivisions and things, but so that's a little bit of a tricky one, but that is the biggest issue, is clearing of natural habitat. And so if we're clearing natural habitat, we need to be replanting.
Our backyards need to be full of Australian.
Yeah, and not necessarily only just Australian plants and flowers, but they do love Australian plants and flowers and natives, but they'll go for anything. They love it, they'll forage on introduced plant species as well, anything. Yeah, so bee-friendly, pollinator-friendly plants and flowers.
And
they can find all that on your Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, or flick me an email.
Yep.
And I'll always recommend you go and see your local family gardener.
Okay.
You know, your family store.
So what's the name for someone who's
As
into
in-
bees, by the way? Is there do you have like a
So,
scientific name?
yes, we do.
What's it called?
Well, there's a beekeeper, but if
Yep.
you're a stingless beekeeper, you're called a melaponist.
A melaponist.
Yeah.
Wow. We should have introduced you like that.
That sounds a bit fancy.
It is fancy, but I do like fancy names. See, so what we were thinking, I was thinking, when I asked you that question, I was thinking, we've got the big pineapple and all. I thought maybe you want to do a big bee and have a big museum and start something like that. No, that's not in the future.
Well, no, I don't want to go big. I just want to educate. I just want to educate people locally, and I'd like to just have people know that if they've got bees that they need support with, that they can call me, and get more out into schools, preschools, nursing homes, community gardens.
nursing homes.
Nursing sounds would be cool.
Yeah.
Never
And,
thought of that.
yeah, and then I go back then each year, and then we look at either doing a split or doing an adduction, which is another way of creating another hive, and then
Like universities and TAFEs around their gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have a couple, couldn't they?
I'm keen to get one.
yeah.
You want to
Really
come see
cool.
my native bees when I go?
Oh, well.
Yeah.
When you go, yeah.
We'll name the queen bee.
So have we missed anything?
I don't
Anything
think
you
so.
wanted to bring up?
No, I
'Cause
think you've.
I suppose the other thing is we've got to stop using, I suppose, pesticides and herbicides.
Yes.
So that knocks them around. That sells
Definitely.
everything.
Yeah.
Do you educate people on what they can do as a replacement for what they spray their veggies with, or that sort of stuff? Or
Or I just companion planting is a good thing to do. Instead of thinking, I'm going to spray these pests, you have to think about if you're spraying pests, you're also putting that poison on your plants that you're then going to eat,
Yeah.
and then you have not only that bug that you're trying to get rid of dies, but other bugs and other pollinators will come to there and they will die too. So working out what plants to plant next to the issue,
Yep.
which will naturally reduces pests.
Which blows me away when people say, "Oh, I've just sprayed my," they go, "Oh, I want to grow my own veggies because I don't want to buy the chemicals," but they're happy to spray.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
at least I know what's going on. Well, you don't really.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
you're right. Like, bloody, why would you spray
Something that you're
for
going
any
to
bug?
eat. Yeah,
Really,
exactly.
they've all got a place in their life. Spiders.
Yeah.
Anything. So it blows me away. People saying, "Oh, I'll just grow my own," but I'll go and get some irrigate and spray those plants.
Yeah.
So out where you were with the fires now,
Yeah.
like the big fires that everyone's aware of, how's it going now? Is it starting to grow back? Is it starting to kick on again? Yeah.
It's been really beautiful. We've been, going back out and seeing just really beautiful signs of life now. So the last time we went out, there was just millions of cicada shells all over these burnt trees, and it was like art. The trees were pure black, and then you had all these crispy cicada shells, like thousands of them everywhere, which made me think, well,
They're surviving.
they are surviving, and the sound from the cicadas was just ear-piercingly loud. So it's
When you
good,
go
things are going
back, when you go back, do you have like those hives? You go, okay, I'll put them back, or once they've sort of moved, you don't want to keep on doing that.
Yeah, no, we definitely could reintroduce them back out into those areas for sure. Definitely. Yep.
Will they do that naturally? Will you see like where it was wiped out? Will you
Yes.
go back and all of a sudden there'll be a population there somewhere?
Yeah, so any areas that didn't get burnt, which there are pockets out there that, it's burnt this road but it didn't burn in the road next to it. So if there's native bees in the areas that didn't get burnt, or if there's colonies in standing trees, because like I said, I do not take anything from a standing tree.
Yeah.
So if there's colonies that survived the fire and they're in maybe sort of part way up into the top of the tree and the fire didn't get up that high, then that will then send off like a daughter colony to into that 500 metre foraging range, and then it will create a new colony. So I mean, it's not all bad. There's definitely still heaps of bees out there.
Yeah.
It's just
They're hardy. They're not silly. They work out.
yeah. But it was we just saved ones that were like in burning logs on the road. And
Just quickly, so when a queen goes to a new place, how long does it take to grow that hive? How many dudes start joining them? Another good question I hear you say.
Right, so that's a bit of a tricky one. So it's
never heard her say that.
Yeah. So say if there's a fully functioning
I
hive,
thought it was good.
that they don't just decide, oh, okay, we're going to head off and let's all go and we create a hive. They send out like a few bees to start building little bits in a new hive, and it takes months and months and months and months for that to work. Once they've got that hive ready and it's got its defense mechanisms in the door and it's got its entry tunnel and all of those sorts of things, and it's safe, they feel it's safe and it smells like them and it's scent marked, then they will, when they're ready to bring the queen across, that's then they bring the queen across and then they start their new colony. And
Is that the main queen, or is that a new princess that they created and they took over? Because she can't get out.
That's right. So it's a princess, exactly. So the princess would exit her current
that.
hive that she was born in, and then she would mate with the drones from a different hive, which has already been created,
drones.
and
Road.
then they take her, and then she's the fertile queen of a new hive.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like a bachelor pad, and they'll just say, hey, come over to this place. Hey, it's pretty nice, have a smell of that.
And now, one last thing, you see it everywhere.
Mhm.
If bees are wiped off the planet,
Mhm.
we all have 4 years to survive.
Oh, I'm not qualified to comment
good
on
answer
that.
Very good.
I am on a lot of Instagram and Facebook pages that say that that's probably not the case.
Yeah.
However, it's a really tricky one.
It's a scary statement.
Yeah, it is.
Especially because, like reading in the North American population of just the normal bees, they're decimated.
Yeah.
And they're doing stuff, and then I hear that Australia's kicking goals. That's really good to hear. But the whole world seems to be in a bit of a problem at the moment.
Yeah, it's still really, it's in a bad way. And I guess one of the good statistics that I can tell you that I'm pretty sure is quite accurate is 1 in 3 mouthfuls of everything that you eat, like a fruit and vegetable, is pollinated by bees. So it means if our bee population dies, 1/3 of the world's food is gone.
And then we can't survive.
That's right. And there's some foods that can only be pollinated through bees.
Because
Right.
there's
It's the
other
most
there's
effective
other
way,
insects out there that pollinate.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
So it's not just bees.
No, but it's a major thing, isn't it?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so I don't know entirely around that. If all bees died, we'd have 4 years to live. But I just think, well, if we work on that and we do the right thing and we reduce pesticide use and we reduce clearing of land and we plant the right things, we may as well do that and not have to worry about that.
Yeah, not stress about it.
Yeah.
Mm. All right.
Anything else?
No, I'm pretty up there now. I'm good.
Yeah. No. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for
And
having
now
me,
thanks
guys.
for behaving yourself.
Well, information.
That's it.
I was just waiting for him today.
Oh,
I
you
just
had to
put
do
it
that
in
bee
as,
pun.
Dave, you can buzz in any time if you want.
So for everyone that's listening or probably watching as well, so
Yep.
get hold of Crystal on her Instagram
Yep.
and Facebook and
Yep.
her email. Just write them
Stingless
in.
Bee Buzz.
We'll probably put that on our Facebook
Yeah, we will.
page
Yeah.
anyway.
On
So
show
yeah,
notes and
good.
That'd
too.
be great. If you're a school or a preschool or a nursing home or a community garden in the Northern Rivers region and you're interested in looking into having stingless native Australian bees, you can just drop me an email to stinglessbeebuzz@gmail.com and I can put you onto our waiting list.
Oh, cool.
And you'll buzz around and see him.
I'll give you a buzz.
And you don't even though say you might not have a hive to take out, you would still be like an education type thing where you could go
definitely.
with something and do like an education talk about
Yeah,
how it
I
works,
do.
that sort of
I
stuff.
do that too. So some schools will say, "Oh, well, we can't afford that at the moment," but we're doing a unit at the moment on bees or on insects in Australia, and so they'll ask me to come out and I take my hives out and with little viewing windows and we look inside and we identify different parts of the hive and so I can do educational stuff as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Wish you brought one in for us today.
I
Little
probably
bit
should
sad.
have.
A
Or a
little bit sad.
little bee.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll survive
Here he is.
like the bees will. Right,
All right.
that's it, guys.
Thank you
that's
so
it for the
much for
show.
having me, guys.
No problem.
No worries.
No,
Thanks for coming. Yep.
Thank you.